Gold. So thanks for everyone's time this morning. My name is Brandon Bonifacio, President, CEO, and Director of NevGold Corp, which is a new issuer coming to market, and look forward to updating the Amvest network on the story this morning. And as Campbell mentioned, please ask any questions after I walk through the slide deck here. I will be making forward-looking statements, so please read this slide on your own accord. Why NevGold? We've now completed a transformative, low-cost acquisition of two advanced stage district-scale projects in Nevada, the Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash gold projects, for less than $7 per ounce of the ground of historical resources. These assets combined have had over $50 million US spent on them, so we have a great platform for our team to work from in terms of the geological database. All the assets in the portfolio show exceptional resource expansion and exploration potential. Limousine Butte has a historical resource, but we're seeing a lot of opportunities along strike and at depth at that asset. Cedar Wash is an earlier stage project, but we've identified a greater than 2 kilometer gold soil trend at the project. And we have a Bonanza-grade polymetallic exploration asset in BC called Ptarmigan. So again, very happy with the portfolio our group has been able to compile. Another key pillar of value is the team. So we've been able to pull together a group of individuals at the board and executive level with over 175 years of combined experience. A lot of this group is from the ex-Nevada Copper team that progressed the Pumpkin Hollow project through exploration, resources, engineering studies, permitting, construction, and the project is now in production. So we have a well-defined roadmap of how to develop, advance, and de-risk an asset in Nevada along the development curve. The company NevGold will have a strong balance sheet after our recently completed 6.3 million Canadian raise and a very tight capital structure with strong insider ownership. We are fully funded on the back of the raise to aggressively explore our projects for the next 24 months, and we will have approximately 50 million shares outstanding as we push to our first trading date on the TSX-V under the ticker symbol NAU on June 29th. In culmination, the investment thesis is we have a clear path to plus 1 million ounces of near surface oxide gold resources in Nevada by Q1 of 2022, but we also have multi-million ounce potential by unlocking the exploration upside at our portfolio, and we believe this will be a key driver of our re-rate from a valuation standpoint. Shifting to the portfolio itself, Limousine Butte is the most advanced in the portfolio. It's on the southern part of the Carlin Trend. It has a historical resource of 292,000 ounces at 0.77 gram per ton, and it was a past producer in the 1989-1990 timeframe. After reviewing the historical geological database of over 120,000 meters of historical drilling, we see a lot of resource expansion potential, as I mentioned, along strike and at depth to drive towards a multi-million ounce target. Cedar Wash is an earlier stage gold silver exploration project in the southeastern part of the state. This was a grassroots discovery made by McEwen Mining in 2015, but it has a lot of similar geological characteristics to Liberty Gold's Gold Strike project, which is 20 kilometers as the crow flies on the Utah side of the border and hosts greater than 1 million ounces at 0.5 gram per ton gold. This is a very interesting exploration asset to round out our portfolio in Nevada. And transitioning up to British Columbia, the Tarmagen project in the southeastern part of the province, it's an extremely high grade silver, gold, copper project centered around the historically silver-rich Ptarmigan mine. Some of the past drilling intercepts have grades greater than 2,300 gram per ton silver, 37 gram per ton gold, and 1% copper. So again, it's a very high grade asset. We control a very promising 3 district scale assets in both Nevada and British Columbia, and we're very excited about our current portfolio. As we zoom in on Limousine Butte, the project is 821 unpatented mining claims on BLM ground, covering approximately 67 square kilometers in the southern part of the Carlin Trend, which you can see on the figure in the top right. Access is great via state paved highway and county maintained gravel road. The project has had significant historical work from an exploration and drilling standpoint. To replicate the historical work would cost approximately US $47 million. So it gives us a great platform from a geological database to leverage as we hit the ground running, as the company is now well financed. From an exploration standpoint, there have been some very key high-grade intercepts at the project, 12 meters at close to 7 gram per ton gold, 25 meters of 3.86 gram per ton gold. So although the historical resource in the bottom right table trends closer to 0.77 gram per ton of 292,000 ounces, there are higher grade intercepts and feeder structures within the land package. So this becomes a key target of ours as we will drill the project in the next few quarters. Worth noting on the historical resource, the last formal resource estimate on Limousine Butte was completed in 2009 when the gold price was close to $850 per ounce. So you can see the elevated cutoff grade of 0.41 gram per ton gold. In today's world, similar assets at elevated gold price are using a cutoff grade of 0.15 to 0.2 gram per ton gold. So again, we see some low bearing fruit in terms of the old historical resource with some infill drilling and being able to expand this in short order. When we discuss the historical drilling and work completed on the project, it's had over 900 holes and over 120,000 meters of drilling along a structural corridor of approximately 20 kilometers, which you can see trending northeast to southwest. You can see the sheer volume of drilling at a lot of the key targets at Limousine Butte. A lot of this drilling was focused on near surface oxide resources and only goes to a depth of approximately 150 meters. This gives us a great opportunity for lateral extension from a resource standpoint, but also offers us opportunities at depth to define the higher grade feeder structures that are driving some of the near surface oxide mineralization. From a resource expansion standpoint, we have Resurrection Ridge, which is a key component of that historically stated 292,000 ounces, but we've also identified a deposit called Cadillac Valley, which shows a lot of promise of being pulled into the resource category in short order. It's already had 23,000 meters of drilling, so it will only take a small amount of drill meterage to book this as a resource if we have success by way of the drill bit. So as we mentioned and discussed the plus 1 million ounces of near surface oxide resources, we believe we can deliver on that with a drilling program over Q3 and Q4 of this year, followed by a resource estimate update in Q1 of 2022. Transitioning to Cedar Wash, you can see where it's situated in the southeastern part of Nevada. This is a very underexplored and underdeveloped area of Nevada. It's off the traditional Carlin, Cortez, and Long Canyon trends, which are in the northern part of the state. The project itself is all on BLM ground again, covering approximately 19 square kilometers. It was a grassroots discovery made by McEwen Mining in 2015, 2016. So it is very much an earlier stage project, but it offers a lot of promise in our portfolio. The project has had 7,000 meters of RC drilling, and some of the key intercepts are greater than 10 meters at 2 gram per ton oxide from surface, 16.7 meters of 1.36 gram per ton gold from surface. So again, hitting intercepts like these from surface is just scratching the surface in our view, and we see a lot of opportunity to further drill test the project. In terms of the work that's been completed to date, you can see the historical surface and rock chip sampling focused mainly on the western portion of the large land package. This was followed up by a 7,000 meter drill program, and I mentioned some of the key results. Our main goal at Cedar Wash is to focus on completing the surface geology, inclusive of rock chip and soil sampling, in Q3 of this year across the entire land package. We see this as being low cost, high value add work, and it will help us vector in on the key drill targets for a drilling program in Q4 of this year. And then transitioning up to the Ptarmigan asset in British Columbia, this came by way of Silver Mountain Mines, which was the vehicle used for the reverse takeover transaction. This was an asset that had a lot of work from 2010 to 2014, but unfortunately the capital markets did not cooperate thereafter. So effectively from 2014 to today, the asset has been on care and maintenance with no active exploration. With that said, it's a very promising high-grade asset in the southeastern part of British Columbia. It's on a 93 square kilometer consolidated land package, 30 kilometer west of Radium, BC. It was a small scale, extremely high grade producer with grades of over 4,200 gram per ton silver, 5.4 gram per ton gold, and 0.58% copper. As we shift to look at what work has been completed at Ptarmigan, this is by no means an early stage asset. It's had approximately 14,000 meters of diamond drilling completed. Some of the key intercepts include 4.5 meters at 2,000 gram per ton silver, 0.8 gram per ton gold, and 0.72% copper, over a meter of over 2,300 gram per ton silver, 1.64 gram per ton gold, and over 1% copper. It also has underground stope development of 540 meters. As I mentioned, it was a high grade producer. All of the surface geology, including mapping, geophysics, geochemical analysis, is completed. And the project has even had some metallurgical test work, including flotation and bulk sampling analysis. So again, it's very much an asset that offers us a great platform with a historical geological database. We are currently working through the data compilation and data review, and we anticipate advancing the project in 2021 and 2022. So in culmination of our 2021 proposed work program, asset by asset, Limousine Butte, we're targeting a 10,000 meter drill program in Q3 and Q4 of this year, driving towards a resource estimate in Q1 of 2022. At Cedar Wash, we plan to complete the surface geology in Q3 of this year, followed by a drilling program in Q4. If the drilling program is successful, we will continue to drill that project into 2022. And at Ptarmigan in British Columbia, we're currently working through the data compilation exercise, and we look to drill the project at the end of Q3 into Q4, and we anticipate advancing that project further in the portfolio into 2022. So again, we have a very promising group of assets in the NevGold ownership. This program here, total forecasted budget is approximately 3.5 million. So we were well cashed up on the back of our 6.3 million Canadian raise that we just completed last week to accomplish this program and continue to explore and develop these assets into 2022. Transitioning to the team and board of directors, and without going name by name, we've pulled together a very strong group of board and executive members. A lot of these individuals have had a wealth of experience operating and advancing projects in the Americas, and specifically in Nevada. Certain board members worth highlighting who are very hands-on. Greg French, from a technical standpoint, he's a professional geologist with over 35 years of experience in the Western USA and Canada. He was instrumental to the acquisition of Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash. He was intimately familiar with the assets, so he's taken a very hands-on role as a part of our director group. And Tim Dyer is another individual, over 35 years of permitting experience, predominantly in the US. He was instrumental to Nevada Copper's Pumpkin Hollow project being permitted, but also was a part of the teams that permitted the Robinson project in Nevada and the Pinto Valley project in Arizona. So again, a great individual for us to lean on. He's very hands-on and will be a great support from an environmental, social governance, and permitting standpoint. And as we look at the executive team, Brandon Bonifacio, myself as President CEO, Bob McKnight, CFO and Corporate Development. So again, we think we've brought together a very strong group for a company at this stage that allows us to advance and develop these projects. Also worth noting on the board from a capital market standpoint is Julio Bonifacio, who is one of the founders of Nevada Copper and was instrumental to advancing that company from exploration through the resource engineering stage into the permitting and now construction and production stage, and Victor Bradley. So again, we've got a very strong group of capital markets, technical, environmental and social governance, and corporate governance to advance and de-risk the project portfolio that we currently have under the NevGold ownership. When we look at the capital structure itself, some of the key milestones, it has been a very active last week for NevGold. We closed a 40-cent unit offering on June 22nd for gross proceeds of 6.3 million dollars Canadian. On June 23rd, we closed the acquisition of the Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash projects in Nevada from McEwen Mining, and we also closed the reverse takeover transaction with Silver Mountain Mines to form NevGold. June 29th will be our first day of trading under the ticker symbol TSX-V NAU, so please stay tuned to that date. So it's a great time for us to update the market on where we currently are and our go-forward plans. When we look at the pro forma capital structure on the back of the 6.3 million raise and completion of the transaction of the assets, we will have less than 50 million shares issued and outstanding. Our total fully diluted share count is just over 65 million. Our post-money valuation is approximately 19.9 million Canadian, and we will have approximately 5.7 million Canadian in the bank for a pro forma enterprise value of just over 14 million Canadian. So again, we're very well valued, and we'll get to that on the next slide. We think there's a clear re-rate opportunity. We have an extremely tight capital structure with strong ownership by insiders and associates, and we're fully funded to aggressively explore our Limousine Butte, Cedar Wash, and Ptarmigan properties, culminating in a resource update at Limousine Butte in Q1 of 2022. And as we shift to the market valuation comparables, as I mentioned, you can see a comparable group of other exploration and resource stage projects in Nevada with market caps trending 25 to 50 million Canadian. At our post-money valuation with 6.3 million in the bank, we see a clear valuation re-rate if we can deliver on our clearly stated objectives and milestones. A lot of projects in Nevada at a resource stage trade at $40 per ounce of resource. So if we can deliver on that million ounce resource in Q1 of 2022, you can work out the reverse calculation of what that could equate to from a market capitalization standpoint. But I don't think we can just focus just on that metric. We do have a lot of exploration upside, which we will be aggressively testing over the next 12 months. So we have both a resource base along with very high potential exploration upside at our portfolio. Thank you. And now I'll turn it back to Campbell for any questions from the listeners.
Great, thank you. How's my audio? A little better?
Better now, Campbell.
Excellent, okay. Apologies for that. I'm sure you get this, or you certainly will be getting this question a lot. If the McEwen property seems so prospective, could you reconcile why McEwen would have sold them after conducting substantial drilling programs to date? Reasonable one.
It's a great question, and it's come up quite a bit. At the end of the day, McEwen's focus was at some of their other assets in Nevada from a capital allocation and human resource allocation standpoint. They saw this as being a great opportunity to extract value from their portfolio that they were getting no ascribed value for by the marketplace. So for them, they're keeping a 10% equity ownership of NevGold. So they're very much a strategic shareholder of the company. They've got some cash up front from an acquisition standpoint, and they also keep royalties at both Cedar Wash and Limousine Butte. So again, they're keeping that upside exposure to Limousine Butte and Cedar Wash. And from a McEwen corporate strategy standpoint, their focus was at some of their assets in Ontario and the other projects in Nevada. So it was a great opportunity for them to monetize with a strong group like ourselves. So again, this discussion with McEwen does go back almost 12 months now for the listeners. So we've had a lot of time working with them in a collaborative manner, and we welcome them as a key strategic shareholder of NevGold.
Okay. Someone asks, is there a relation of Giulio Bonifacio to Brandon Bonifacio?
Yes, Giulio is my father.
All right. What will be the spacing in future drilling programs? What will be the focus?
So the focus of that 10,000 meters earmarked at Limousine Butte, 6,500 meters of that will be focused on resource expansion and lateral extension drilling of the resources. And then 3,500 meters will be focused more on the exploration side at some of the defined targets that we have within our land package today.
Okay, very good. I'll pass it to Adam to drill down, no pun intended, a little deeper.
Thank you, Campbell. Brandon, I've been to Limousine with McEwen. It must have been probably 10 years ago. and obviously a lot of smoke on the surface there at Limo. My recollection was that Newmont was, had some property or a joint venture down around that area. Has that been consolidated in your holdings? And maybe you can talk a little bit about the progress at Limo over the last 10 years under McEwen.
Yeah, so to touch on the Newmont point, there was a joint venture in place in the early 2000s where they were actively exploring. That area is part of this consolidated land package. So McEwen came by way of Limousine Butte via merger in 2008, 2009 with US Gold, or underneath the US Gold ownership. And again, their focus underneath the McEwen structure was trying to test some of the key targets. At the end of the day, they focused predominantly on Cadillac Valley and Epex, which are two key targets that we will be drilling as well. So a lot of the drilling that they focused on was on Cadillac Valley, which is part of the reason that it was never stated historically in that resource from 2009, because a lot of that drilling happened thereafter. But again, as I mentioned, a lot of the drilling at Limousine Butte has been focused on the near surface oxide potential along that 20-kilometer structural corridor. We see a lot of opportunities to further define resources that are near surface, as I mentioned, targeting that 1 million ounce marker, but there is that depth potential. So the real carrot is being able to test some of the higher grade feeder structures, and McEwen did scratch the surface on that at some of the deposits, and we will be following up on some of their drilling success underneath the NevGold ownership in the next couple quarters here.
The feeders that have been hit, or the high grade, that has been hit, has that been oxide or sulfide?
Some oxide, some transitionary, and then some sulfide as well, Adam. So there's a mix depending on the depth. Some of the deeper holes only go to approximately 250 to 300 meters. So again, as global exploration goes, that's still not technically deep per se, but you're seeing grades north of 4 or 5 gram per ton. So it's very similar to other deeper sulfide systems in Nevada at what grades you would see at some of those as well. So again, I think it warrants further follow-up. All of the historical database has been digitized. It's in the geological software, so we have a great visual of what the deposits could entail and where some of the holes ended in mineralization that warrant follow-up work. So again, I think we have done a lot of legwork over the last 6 months with respect to where we want to target in this upcoming drilling program.
I know, I noticed in your slides you haven't named yet your chief geo, and to me, that's going to be a key factor to figure out Limo and really understand and nail those feeder zones. Somebody with real Carlin experience. Maybe you could talk a bit about that, and it looked like you have somebody, but you can't say what his name is. Maybe you could give us some color there.
Definitely. So there will be a news release going out in the next 7 to 10 days, Adam, on that. He has started working with us, but can't officially state his start date or announcement until then. But it's an individual with a wealth of Nevada experience in terms of Carlin style deposits. He's worked both on a junior exploration standpoint, but also at some of the larger companies, including Newmont. So a lot of experience, and he's going to be a key value add part of our group and a key partner of ours. I also want to mention that Greg French, who I spoke before on the board of directors, he is a hands-on director as well, Adam. So he has been instrumental to a lot of the upfront legwork on both the asset due diligence side, but then also the program planning side from a go-forward standpoint. So we do work very collaboratively. Greg, along with the chief geo, will work from a hands-on standpoint together, planning the program. So I think we have a very strong group of technical individuals who are Nevada-based and have a lot of experience working on these style of deposits.
And just talking about the Limo package again, McEwen maintains a royalty there. Are there any other royalties? Does Newmont have any residual royalties?
Yes, there's a 2.5% to Franco-Nevada, which came by way of Newmont, and then there's the 0.5% to McEwen as part of the transaction terms. I do want to mention there's 2 other minor royalties, but they're not blanketing the entire land package, so they're on very select claims. So it will not encumber the current resources or key targets that we've identified. So I would view it as a 3% blanket royalty on the entire land package.
And then shifting over to Cedar Wash, you know, that area, maybe you want to flip the deck over to that. I'm not sure. That area in southeast Nevada and over the border into Utah, that's a really emerging area over the last 10 years. There's been historic mining there, gold mining there, and silver mining. Maybe you could talk a bit about some of the projects and historic mines in that area and why it's sort of been overlooked until maybe the last 5 or 10 years.
Definitely, and I think that the focus, obviously, you can see in the northern part on the Carlin, Cortez, and Long Canyon trends, and that's where a lot of the projects in Nevada are situated. But there's also the Walker Lane trend, which is coming up, and obviously in this part, in the southeastern area of the state, as I mentioned, Liberty Gold's Gold Strike project, which was a past producer and has over 1 million ounce resource, is 20 kilometers as the crow flies on the Utah side of the border. We've done an analysis on both projects geologically, and we see a lot of similarities at the key units that they're targeting and the key, I guess, geological vectoring into where the drilling should occur. So it's a very underexplored district. I think the package and the grassroots discovery that McEwen made goes to show you the strength of their group in Nevada. And I think this is a very interesting, promising earlier stage project, gold silver wise, but we do see a lot of promise in some of the 7,000 meters of historical drilling, but also what we see in other parts of the land package from a rock chip and soil sampling standpoint. So to your point, I think it is a very interesting part of the state because it is underexplored and because it may not have the similar signatures as the northern part, but you do see large tonnage, potential large scale assets in that part of the state. And I think Gold Strike's a great analogous deposit for that in terms of the geological similarities and style.
And then can you talk a bit about Ptarmigan in BC? You know, I'm just not familiar with that asset. And you know, the initial description to me sounds like, and where it's located, you know, sounds to me like you know, you know, you got some high grade structures potentially that are that indicate, you know, maybe there's a porphyry down below.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's the prize at this Ptarmigan asset. So a lot of the drilling has been focused on the epithermal vein systems, which are closer to surface, and the sort of semi-massive sulfide system has not been tested at depth. So the key focus for us is understanding the epithermal vein systems, which have been tested to date, but really it's also targeting the deeper sulfide feeder system that will drive the story behind the tonnage. So I think it's a great asset now in terms of what's being drilled to date, and you're seeing some of those Bonanza style grades, but really we do want to test that deeper, potentially deeper sulfide system, because that will really drive the tonnage, which will drive interest in the project itself. So again, it's a great starting platform at Ptarmigan. I think you can see even from a geological standpoint and drilling standpoint, they focused drilling from the same drill pad and tagging the vein system, and you can see some of the stopes and the style of mineralization and just how Bonanza-grade it really is. But we do want to focus on building the geological model so we can vector in on what that potential larger feeder system is from a sulfide standpoint.
And all these assets now are 100% yours?
Yes, 100% owned in the NevGold portfolio.
Okay, excellent. Let me pass it on to Erdy. He's got some questions, and then we can pass it maybe back to Campbell to handle some more questions from the audience.
Perfect.
Thank you, Brandon. You mentioned $47 million past exploration expenditures in today's money. Can you explain a little bit more that database? it is more like drilling, or it is more like the surface sampling for the early prospectors to narrow down the targets? I'm wondering how much of that database is helping you today.
So a lot of it, Erdi. So it's not just the surface geology. There has been over 900 holes and 120,000 meters of historical reverse circulation and diamond drilling. So there's been a lot of drilling at this project, which is a decent component of that 47 million US historically spent. But there's also geophysics, geochemical analysis at surface that we're using and leveraging. So we've got all the data layers, and we're using all of those to vector in on where we want to drill in this upcoming season. But having real drill assays and results from a drill hole database standpoint is a great tool along with the surface work. So we're definitely incorporating all of the different historical data layers into our drill targeting exercise that we're currently in the midst of.
Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, this mine historically ran for a year and produced almost 100,000 ounce gold. I'm wondering why it ran only for a year with that high amount of production.
Yeah, so it got back a bit to commodity price at the time, Erdi, and I think I will flip to a slide that's in the appendix because I think it's a nice visual. So you can see here where the Golden Butte pit is, and that was what was mined out for that total close to 100,000 ounces of heap leachable oxide resources. And you can then see where Resurrection Ridge is situated. So when I mentioned the lateral extension potential, this is really a key driver that this is effectively one deposit and it was just never mined out. So really we see a lot of opportunities in expanding this laterally up and down that northeast to southwest trend. And I think to answer your question, a lot of it gets back to commodity price over the 90s and the issues that the operator at the time had.
Okay, makes sense. Is this presentation available online now?
It will be. Our website will be going live on Monday, and
Okay.
the presentation will be on it. And Campbell also has a PDF version that he can send out accordingly.
Okay, thank you. I'm good for now. I want to pass it to Campbell.
Yeah, and a link to that in the original invite email. So if you all want to dig that up, you can get a copy of this. Are the permits in place for drilling at Limo? And Cedar?
So from a Limo standpoint, we've commenced the process from a permitting standpoint. So we've started pulling together what's called a notice. The notice allows you to disturb up to 5 acres and is a process that takes approximately 45 to 60 days. So again, that's the great part about having somebody like Tim Dyer and Greg French on the board, along with our incoming chief geo. We do know and understand the roadmap of how to get things done in Nevada. So we're clearly leveraging that. So from that standpoint, we will be ready to start drilling Limousine Butte end of August timeframe with where we are today. So it's going to be a very tight timeline and getting that permit submitted. We've already started discussions with drill rig contractors and we have rigs lined up. So I would say for potential investors to focus on beginning August, the drilling will start and we'll have assay turnaround times quite quickly thereafter.
If you could just give us the COVID update. You're in British Columbia, and are you able to normally travel to Nevada? Are the people on the ground able to handle August, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so I think it's great that we have such a strong group of individuals who are Nevada and US based. So as I mentioned, Greg French, Tim Dyer, our chief geologist, they're all Reno based. So again, we have a strong operational infrastructure in Nevada today, and then our corporate infrastructure is here in BC. Unfortunately, travel right now from Canada to the United States is still a bit difficult, but our group is vaccinated. So when we do have lesser restrictions from a border standpoint, which looks to be being less restrictive shortly here, we will be making the trip down. But again, very happy and pleased with the team we have down there, and we talk daily. So it's very collaborative and communication channels are very much open.
Excellent. Thoughts on a US listing?
So we will be pushing forward with the US listing now that we've completed the RTO transaction and we have a lot of the key details established for NevGold. So that will be one of our near-term action items for the company, is to push that US listing as soon as possible.
Carrying costs of the claims at Limousine and Cedar is the Franco-Nevada royalty and NSR royalty.
It is a 2.5% NSR royalty. In terms of the carry cost, the current claim package at Limousine Butte is approximately US 90,000 per year in carry costs. And at Cedar Wash, it's approximately US 30,000 per year in carry costs. So again, very modest, and there's no minimum work expenditures like other jurisdictions and whatnot. So we're quite happy with what those costs are to keep these projects in good standing.
What will the next stage be if you like your results and they're positive, and as they go forward, any thoughts on phase 2 and so on?
Definitely. I think we do want to drive towards that resource update in Q1 of 2022, but we by no means want to close off the geological and mineralization systems. So if we see a lot of promise in some of the drilling that occurs over Q3 and Q4 of next year, we will continue to drill and we will update the resource accordingly, but we won't push to the engineering studies until we truly define a critical mass. So when I mentioned that we are targeting multi-million ounce deposits, the million ounce marker is great to target from a near surface oxide standpoint, but our main goal as a group is to drive multi-million ounce potential that will then interest the likes of other mid-cap and large cap companies to potentially look at monetizing after we deliver on positive engineering studies.
Okay, great. Adam, I'll pass it back to you. I'm sure you've got a follow-up, and then we'll kind of shift the close unless there are more questions coming in. Please send in your questions. Adam?
Yeah, I guess, can you just tell us a bit more about the historic mining at Limo?
Yeah, it was very traditional, standard run-of-mine heap leach project that ran on a pretty basic heap leach pad for approximately 2 years. Had good recoveries, obviously historical in nature, but the run-of-mine recoveries were trending close to 80%. So obviously it's highly oxidized material, but very basic, simple mining operation.
What years were those?
That was 1989, 1990.
Mm-hmm. So it was definitely low metal price, lowish metal price environment.
Yes.
I guess, and they just halted operations based on metal price.
Yeah. I think that the company itself, it was called Alta Gold, but just ran into issues as well corporately, and then metals prices turned, so the operations were never recommenced or restarted thereafter underneath the different ownership.
And you have the full database going all the way back to Alta?
Yes.
And do you have the core and the samples as well?
So predominantly, if you're looking at the historical 120,000 meters of drilling, around 85% of that was RC. So we do have the chips. McEwen's kept a lot of that in good storage at one of their other projects in Nevada. We've started the process of having that transitioned over to us now that the transaction is completed. And there's not much core currently, Adam. So I think that is also an opportunity of ours to understand the different alterations and characteristics as we drill this upcoming season. So we will be doing a blend of RC and core drilling this year. So again, we're going to be building on that database accordingly.
And has any geophysics been applied to the Limousine Butte area?
Yes, so there was geophysics, so we do have those data layers as well. There is a technical report on Limousine Butte that we completed. We did not update the resource. It was a geological focus report, but you can see some of the geophysical data layers in that report, and that's posted on Cedar underneath Silver Mountain Mines, which will now be NevGold.
Mm-hmm. And was that data? So that was when was that work completed? And did McEwen have the advantage of seeing that work?
Yes, they would have. I would have to check the exact year. I think from a geophysical standpoint, there probably is some follow-up work that we would like to do as NevGold. But I think from a data layer standpoint, McEwen did have that data set to use as they honed in on their drilling And a lot of the drilling that McEwen completed was from 2010 to approximately 2016. So they did have a good few years there of drilling, and obviously we all know what happened in the commodity markets from sort of 2012 onwards. So it was a bit more challenging from a capital allocation standpoint at these companies. And I did work myself at Gold Corp, which was one of the top 5 gold producers, and exploration is always the easiest budget to cut, unfortunately, for these larger companies. So I think that was the same at McEwen as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well,
If
with
I
that,
may, Campbell,
Campbell, I'll throw it back to you.
Yeah, if I
Okay.
may, Campbell, I just think maybe a point worth noting, and it didn't necessarily get folded into the presentation today, but
Mm-hmm.
we're very happy with what we've been able to pull together here. I think it's a very compelling asset portfolio. It has a nice, strong resource base today, but you also have that exploration upside, which is the real carrot. And I think as investors goes, you can look at this story today and it has a simple go forward plan. I think we have clearly stated objectives that we will aim and target to deliver on. And I think that helps. There's so many stories out there, and I've invested in them personally. I'm sure a lot of people on the line have as well. And it's hand to mouth drilling for the sake of drilling without clearly stated objectives. And you start running into share capital and dilution issues at a certain point in time. So I think the nice part about a NevGold, it's a new issuer. We're coming to market. Our first day of trading is next Tuesday, June 29th, under the ticker NAU. Our valuation is modest, and if we can deliver on our clearly stated objectives, which you don't see very often in the junior mining space, that will drive a re-rate in the marketplace. So I think at these price entry levels, it's still a fantastic valuation for new investors to look at the story, and we look forward to advancing the projects and de-risking them accordingly over the next 6, 12, 18 months.
Mm-hmm. Do you think you're going to stay focused on what you have in Nevada? Your hands are full, or will you keep an eye open for opportunistic acquisitions, or would you call yourself a Southwest focused, Nevada focused?
I would say
it's evolving.
I would say Southwest US and British Columbia focused. So sort of West Coast up and along this corridor, I think is the strategy of this company. And to your question on, we always keep our eyes out for opportunities. I think you have to as a management team. I think there's a lot of good assets out there, but from a portfolio today, we're very happy with what we have, but naturally results will drive that and that capital allocation on a go forward basis. So we want to test all 3 of our assets in the next 6 to 9 months. And on the back of that, if we have success, we will then allocate accordingly.
Would you do flow through financings for your Canadian project?
Yes, and that's a very good question. So that is on the horizon and something that we've kept in the back pocket, but we will be doing flow through if we are and plan to get more active on Ptarmigan.
How much do you, back to Nevada, how much do you think you should spend before publishing a resource estimate? So I know there's a lot of assumptions there, but
yeah, I think that budget was quite indicative on the 2021 proposed work program. So
okay.
I think when you look at this, updating that resource is something that we are targeting today. But as I mentioned, if we're having a lot of exploration success, we are not going to close off the deposit by stating a resource in Q1 of next year. We will continue to drill until we really understand the full extent of the mineralization. But in terms of this upcoming program, we are fully funded, and we do have a runway into 2022 and potentially beyond with what we've just raised and our current treasury position. So I would say this $3.5 million covers off a lot of work and active field programs at Limousine Butte, Cedar Wash, and Ptarmigan. Whether we push towards that resource in Q1 of 2022, it is our target today. But as we know, if we're having success by way of the drill bit, we will continue to drill so we keep the mineralization open at our projects.
What do you think the majors and mid-tiers are looking for in Nevada? How many ounces would you have to demonstrate to get people interested?
I think it's an interesting question. We've obviously thought about it strategically as a board and executive group. I think there still is interest for projects that can arrive at that 1 million ounce marker, but our main goal is to really drive towards 2, 3, 4 million ounces and beyond. I think from a large cap standpoint, and coming from Gold Corp myself, anything below 2.5 to 3 million ounces would have to have an exceptional grade profile to even interest us when you start looking at what the production profile could mean within the larger company production profile. So again, I think the large caps would be focused on assets greater than 3 million ounces resource base, but I think there's also that suite of mid cap and small cap producers that are looking at assets in the 1 to 3 million ounce range that would be fantastic tuck-in acquisitions. So again, I think you do have the opportunity once you're arriving north of that 1 million ounces to attract potential suitors in the larger mid cap category.
What's the difference between the mineral tenures and crown granted claims at Ptarmigan?
So the mineral tenures are effectively more so leases, where the crowns are actually owned, crown grant claims are actually owned by Silver Mountain. Okay. By NevGold now, sorry.
What is the best way to get in touch with you and the company and the team? I guess there'll be a website out on Monday, but
yeah, the website will be going live Monday, and that was by design to align with our first trading date on Tuesday.
What's the address going to be?
NevGold.com.
NevGold.com.
Yeah, and from a email standpoint, in the last press release that was released yesterday morning, my email contact information is in the bottom of that. So if there's any follow-up questions, please reach out. I'm available at all times.
Yep, and if you don't get that down, you can send something to Amvest, and we can also make the connection. Want to thank everyone for tuning in, for your great questions, checking out this new story. Really exciting. And the replay will be available in about an hour at amvestcapital.com/replays. And also you'll get it in an email. Please share your feedback. You'll be queued up for it when you log out here and in the email and all that. And tell Brandon anything that you think or have an opinion on. It'll be welcomed. I'm going to pass it back to you, Brandon, to close us. And I know you have some strong thoughts on the why looking at the company. So maybe restate why we should check this out on Monday.
Definitely, yeah. I think when you look at the key value proposition or key value pillars or ingredients of a newer company coming to market, we have assets, we have the team, and we have the structure to really drive a valuation re-rate in the market if we have success. And I think that's most important when you look at a newer story coming to market. I think we've done a great job pulling together the asset base and the team, and I think the company is well structured. And if we can deliver on some of our clearly stated objectives, that will drive a valuation re-rate over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So again, I think that's my closing remarks, Campbell, and thanks to yourself and the Amvest group, and of course, thanks to all the listeners this morning for tuning in. And like Campbell mentioned, if there's any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. We're always accessible and would happily make the connection to any of you on the line today.
Excellent. And maybe we'll do another webinar in a few months and see where we are. And if anyone's interested in learning more, we can always set up a one-on-one for investors. So the door is open. Thank you, and everyone have a great weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.